What is going on, guys? It is Evan here from Evan Sports Corner, and today we are back with another episode of the Lamp Light Podcast. Here I'm joined with my boy Ethan, and today we're talking about a couple different things. One, the conference finals is here starting up tomorrow, I believe, and and then we also have some other news around the NHL. The Coyotes could be moving out of Arizona here pretty soon, and we'll be also recapping the previous round of the playoffs. So let's hop right in. I feel like we should start off with the hottest news of the day, which is the Arizona Coyotes potentially leaving Arizona after the vote in about the new stadium completely flopped. Ethan, you know more about the situation than I do. Let's discuss here.
Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. So basically what happened, if you're unfamiliar, is in the city of Tempe, the city council decided to hold a vote on the propositions that would have built the new arena in Tempe. And currently that location is just a landfill in the Tempe area. It's pretty close to the ASU campus, and it's definitely in a big part of Tempe, and it had the potential to being a really good place for an arena. And sadly, it's not going to be the case, as it was not a close vote at all. It was in the 60% range. The
Ooh,
people of Tempe decided that no
that's
more Coyotes in our or no arena for the Coyotes in Tempe, which is unfortunate. So that definitely led people to start freaking out. Uh,
mm-hmm.
last night there were people like right out of the gun. They're like, okay, relocation right away. People worried about it. Gary Bettman came out with a statement saying that they're evaluating their options, and everyone's went straight to speculation. They're like, okay, where they're going? They're going to Houston, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they're going to Utah because the Utah Jazz's owner, uh, by the name of Ryan Smith,
Mm-hmm.
he a few weeks ago met with Gary Bettman about having an NHL team in their arena. So people were like, okay, Utah is probably a very likely place to go. And then
For
also
sure.
Houston's the biggest market, so it was
Houston
stuck
is
between them. But then earlier this morning, amidst all the rumors and the speculation that we were going to have an Atlanta Thrashers scenario, if you're not familiar, the Atlanta Thrashers left Atlanta like literally, like it was a 2 week process. Like we were 1 week where everyone was like, okay, Atlanta exists, whatever, and then all of a sudden, bam, they don't have an arena. They're going to Winnipeg. Everyone was expecting the same scenario, but then
for
coming
sure.
out today on a Daily Faceoff article by what's his name, Mike Gold. He put out an article saying that when the Daily Faceoff asked the Coyotes last night, they confirmed that they will be playing in the Mullet Arena for the 2023-2024 season. So they will be in Arizona for at least one more season, which is, I guess, it's good that the Coyotes potentially will have a send-off date. What are your thoughts on it?
I think that obviously it's very sad. I mean, there's some right now. Arizona sports has kind of been in the crapper for a little bit. I mean, the Diamondbacks are starting to get better, and the who's the other team? Phoenix Suns are constant playoff chokers, and the Cardinals are probably the worst team of football right now. It's pretty sad. I feel bad for those fans. Obviously, there's probably some loyal Coyotes fans out there who have been with the team, but overall, they've just been one of the most poverty franchises in all of sports. I mean, just the team. There's not a lot of interest there from what I've seen, and they've really struggled to find a consistent arena. It's really sad, but I feel like it would probably be better for the franchise to move on to a market that probably cares about the sport a little more, or at least would be a passionate fan base. I think Houston would be a really interesting place to go. Utah, them and the Jazz, I think it could be interesting. But Arizona, I just don't. Long term, I think this is probably the last couple years, the last dance for the Coyotes.
Yeah, definitely. With Houston, I think it's the Toyota Center. It could be Toyota something else. That's where the Houston Rockets play, and
Yeah,
it it has the facilities to host an NHL team. The Houston, I believe it was Arrows or something like that, some airplane name. They were a minor league team there till like the early 2010s. They played in that arena, so it has the facilities to host an NHL or potentially an NHL team. So there's no reason why Houston wouldn't be a good market, especially with the size. It's the fourth biggest population that doesn't have an NHL team right now. So I could
Yeah.
definitely see them going to Houston. And then just going back to the problems with Arizona, this goes all the way back to the early 2010s when they got kicked out of what it is now the Footprint Center, like where the Suns play. They left there because of like sightline problems, and they wanted renovations. And obviously, the old owner of the Suns just didn't want them there. So then they had their
Yeah.
problems in Glendale, and they built that arena in Glendale. They weren't the owners, so they had to pay rent, and then they had rent problems, which is why they're in that 5,000 seat arena in Mullet Arena now, which is a great
Yeah.
experience. I've been there. If you can get to a game there in the next season, because it's probably the last time you will be able to get to a game there, I would
Yeah.
definitely check it out. But it's tough, man. It's really tough.
It's
This team has only made the farthest they made it was the conference finals in 2012, and besides that, it's just been
them their poverty. Yeah.
yeah.
We actually have a couple comment. We have a comment here from our boy Max, who's asking about our thoughts on Tyler Sagan, and we're actually about to talk about the Stars here in just a moment as we talk about the second round here. So I mean, I guess I'll answer Max's question first. I think Tyler Sagan is not what he used to be. He's not that 40, 30 goal scorer really anymore, but he's still a very quality NHL player, and obviously he can still contribute, can get some shots and goals. He filled in well for Pavelski and helped out the Stars in his absence. So Tyler Sagan's not the star player he used to be, but he's still a very quality NHL player. Ethan, would you agree with that?
Definitely, yeah. I think he's served his role as a third line center for the Stars very well. He's especially this last season. When they made it to the conference finals, he was a very prominent role of their top two lines, but he slowly
Yeah,
regressed, and he's still a good player. Maybe a little too much money on that contract, but that's how veteran players are, you know.
for sure. All right, so that's actually great. Thank you, Max, for the question. That's a great transition into our next topic here, which is recapping what happened in the second round of the playoffs. There were four series, and I think that it's only right to start with the first one, which was a 7 game series between the Dallas Stars and the Seattle Kraken. And I think just from a Stars fan's perspective, obviously, I got to give a lot of credit to the Kraken and their fans. They were really fun to, see on social media. They were not as annoying as those Minnesota Wild fans from the previous round. They were extremely annoying. The Kraken are a fun team. They don't really have a star player yet. They're getting there. They're still developing as a franchise, and I expect them to be a contender for years to come. Philip Grubauer had a great postseason, and throughout the series, he was really hard to score on, especially in Game 7. He stepped up big for them. And I think the Kraken are a very good team. I think they have a great future, a lot of good young players. Matty Beniers has a lot of potential. They were very, they had a lot of versatility and they were able to score goals in a lot of different ways this series. But at the end of the day, I my prediction came through. I said that the Stars were the better team on a lot in a bunch of different ways, and that proved to be the point. The Stars came out dominated in Game 7 when they needed to most. And even though Jason Robertson still cannot figure it out, the Stars won and moving on to the conference finals for the second time in 4 years. Ethan, your thoughts on the Dallas Stars win?
All right, so I just want to hit that point of, I guess, bruh, how you just said his name, Jason Robertson, bruh.
Yeah,
Jason Robertson, he's not figuring out the goal scoring, but that's not to say he's not getting points, dude. He has 2 goals and 10 assists, 12 points in the playoffs, in 13 games. That's still a very good playoff performance. He's not able to find the back of the net right now, which is
yeah,
obviously unfortunate and hindering the way the Stars were able to play against the Kraken. And
yeah,
one thing I think the biggest takeaway is Jake Ottinger, for some reason, is way more shakier in the playoffs this year than he was last year. 'Cause last
yeah,
year against the Flames, he was the heart and soul of why they forced a Game 7, and it just came down to the wire, and the Stars could
yeah.
not pull through. But
Dallas.
yeah, It- I mean, yeah, you look at Game 1, just that first period killed the Stars, and then again in Game 6 also. So uh, as long as they can control that, I mean, as long as Andre can keep his game up, I don't see a problem with the Stars facing the Knights. I think the Knights, they have the star power, they have Eichel, they have Petrangelo. I think it'll be once again a tight series, but yeah, I think the Kraken gave a good fight. Good job. I mean, the fans. It was a great teaser. A lot farther than we thought they would. Most people didn't think they were
for
going to make the
sure.
playoffs. They had the Canucks in the spot the Kraken had. I wish, but
Yeah,
2 rounds. You defeat the defending Stanley Cup champions in the first round. I take that for a first playoff appearance ever. You know.
for sure. That was a successful run for them. And I agree with your point. Jake Ottinger's been a lot shakier this postseason. The one thing that you can always say though about Jake Ottinger from what we've seen in his young career is that his bad play usually doesn't affect him the next game. As we saw, he got pulled in game 6, came back in game 7 and was a brick wall throughout when he needed to be. And he is also a really good Game 7 performer the last couple of years. I think that Jake Ottinger, while being shaky, at the end of the day, when the cards are down and the Stars need him to step up big in elimination games, Jake can do that. So I have confidence going forward in Jake. I'm not really worried
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. I also
Moving on. Oh,
Yeah,
you got one?
sorry.
You good? You good?
I just want to give a shout out to Miro Heiskanen too, because boy, he got hit in the it got hit in the face. That didn't affect him at all, man. Comes back the next game. He's had a in fact fantastic playoff. Same thing with Rope Hintz. He's
For
my
sure.
consummate favorite right now.
Hayes,
But
Hayskin's remarkable. He's able to play so much every single game. Like he always logs the most time on ice. He's just an incredible player. And in that game, we saw how the dynamic and all the momentum changed as soon as he went out of the game. He knows how important he is to the Stars. He's one of the league's best defensemen for a reason, and I expect him to be a Norris Trophy winner at some point in the future. So
definitely,
yeah. All right, Ethan, I want you to take the lead on this next series. It was a very good series, hyped up series. Vegas and Edmonton, the league's best power play versus the Knights. What were your thoughts on that series right
yeah.
there?
So obviously the big story, league's best power play ever, not just this season. 56%. That's a pretty scary number for a power play. Luckily for the Knights, uh, they were able to kill some very important penalties as well as just not take the penalties that plagued the LA Kings. And
Yeah.
that's really what allowed them to win these big games. This was one of the many series where we just kept having blowout after blowout. Game two, 5-1 Oilers. Next game, 5-1 Golden Knights, and then 4-1
Mm.
Oilers, and then we got a little bit more closer games towards the end there. But it was definitely a switch back and forth of blowouts, and Connor McDavid and the Oilers not able to pull through. A lot of questions for the Oilers in the offseason, but good for the Golden Knights. And hey, how about that goaltending, man? Aiden Hill, Braswell got injured. Uh, Knights had 5 different goalies this season. I don't think they're worried about their goaltending because they have 5 really good goalies, and Aiden Hill is just one of them. And he stepped up to the occasion, and he's going into the Star Series strong.
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you. Is as obviously I didn't really pay attention to that series as much, so I was actually about to ask about like what's the goaltending situation? Are they going to be able to hold up against Dallas's top line and very deep, you know, team, deep scoring? I was wondering about that, but and clearly Vegas is confident that their goalies can get it done. I mean, I'm pretty surprised about the way the series went. I mean, obviously it's the very casual pick to always pick, the two best players in the sport to win, and that's what I thought was gonna happen. At least, like I didn't really like do the research like that. I thought that that the Oilers were just gonna overpower them with their star power, but we know Vegas is a good team, and this is a familiar opponent for the Dallas Stars as we played them. We beat them every single game we played them this year, and we also beat them in the conference finals a couple years ago. So we have had success against Vegas in the past, but obviously none of that matters in this series. Everything
Yeah,
changes in the
I mean,
so
goaltending was a big factor in this. Similar conversation to what we had about the Bruins and Panthers, is I think the Oilers should have bit the bullet and switched to Jack Campbell because they pulled Jeff Skinner I think 2 or 3 times in the series, and they put
really.
Jack Campbell in, and Jack Campbell he played really well after they pulled him, but they never actually bit the bullet and gave him the start. I think if they gave him the start in Game 7, Jack Campbell was going to pull through. Jack Campbell was originally supposed to be the starter this season. He was supposed to mentor Skinner, but then Skinner had a breakout season. So I mean, it's just one of those things. You never know. Skinner could have pulled it through, but he obviously didn't. And hindsight's 2020, man. So yeah,
Yeah, sometimes it's tough to go against the grain. Sometimes you make those decisions, and yeah, Campbell's obviously the veteran presence, the more steady guy in the net, and I guess the Oilers had a lot of faith in their young goalie, but he just wasn't able to pull through.
yep.
All right, so now we're on to the Eastern Conference, and I think the first series we should talk about is the whooping that the Florida Panthers put on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Ethan, how about yeah? I know you probably paid a lot more closer attention to the series than I did. You get the start. What went wrong for Toronto after winning their first playoff series in so long, and they got bounced in five?
It's the same issues that Toronto's had every time they get bounced, man. The stars never show up. Where was Austin Matthews? Where was Mitch Marner, dude? Where was Bunting? You know, the guys that you need to score goals weren't scoring goals. The guys that are getting paid the big bucks are not scoring the goals for you. You know, so even in the one game they did win, yeah, I believe Matthews did get a goal. I'll double check that, but it just wasn't enough. You got to have that consistent uh production from these players. Actually, it wasn't even Matthews. Matthews had no goals this playoff or
Wow,
this series.
that is so
It was
sad.
Mitch Marner that got the goal. So obviously this core needs to get blown up, man. Okay, not
Really,
blown up. They need to make some adjustments, okay? Because it's the
for
same
sure, for
problem every
sure.
time. Same thing in Toronto. Same thing against Tampa. The Stars aren't showing up. They're relying too much on their depth. They're relying too much on their goaltending. Uh, it's just tough. Tough if you're a Leafs fan. Once again, if you're a Florida Panthers fan, yeah, we want Florida. You know, we want Florida. You're taking
Yeah,
that chant all the way to Carolina. So
that just shows you the absolute like craziness and how unpredictable playoff hockey is. Panthers barely sneaking in. Matthew Kachuk. I mean, look, the Panthers are not a bad team if you look at them on paper. Bobrovsky's been a beast in the playoffs. Kachuk is a star. Barkov is really good. For Hagee, Ekblad, Montour, that's a good team. They're a good team, but obviously, coming into the series, I personally, the reason why I picked Toronto is I thought, okay, they finally made it over the hump. They finally sort of figured out their issues that they've had in the recent years. So I thought that they would figure it out and they would go out and get the win and they would take down Florida and take advantage of their opportunity. But once again, the Canadian teams just cannot get it done. So sad,
yep, yep,
but too bad.
definitely very unfortunate. Uh, just looking at the Florida Panthers though, everyone's kind of shocked, but at the same time, these guys won the President's Trophy last season. Okay, it's
Yeah, they're
pretty
a
much
good
the
team.
same team, and they got Matthew Kachuk, which has improved their team. So
Yeah.
if anything, I'd be looking out for them in this conference finals. So yeah, good
And
job to the
speak.
Florida Panthers. Good job to Bobrovsky. If you're looking at the Leaf side and you're looking at the positives, Joseph Wool, I think, has proved himself as the starter next year. So the young guy, Joseph Wool, is probably going to take that starting spot for the Leafs. And now the question is, will Kyle Dubas say? He did have a press conference yesterday, and he said he's going to talk to his family and all the other stuff that they normally say. So we'll see. Does Sheldon Keefe stay the head coach? I don't know, man. Obviously, Austin Matthews is not going to Arizona anymore. All the jokes are gone because there won't
Yeah.
be any team in Arizona. But
Exactly, exactly.
I could see Mitch Marner or Nylander getting moved. Although if you're the Leafs, I don't think you want to move Nylander because he's the cheapest contract and he's probably the best performer in the playoffs out of the three. So
Sure.
yeah,
All right, so moving on to the last series, it was the Devils and the Hurricanes. And then, what's up, Jade Sports? Nice seeing you here in the chat today. So I'll take the lead on this one because I was wrong. I thought that the Devils were gonna win. I was on that Devils train. The Hurricanes have been playoff chokers from what I've heard, and I just believed. I believed in Jack Hughes. I believed in Timo Meyer and all them boys to get it done, but they did not. From what I saw, the Hurricanes just balled out this series, and Akir Schmidt just wasn't as good as he was in the previous series. So, shout out to the Hurricanes. Obviously, I thought they were a good team, but I just did not think that they were going to do it. But they proved me wrong. They beat the Devils pretty handedly, and they're going to the conference finals. Ethan, you watched the series probably a lot closer than I did.
Yeah.
What did you think?
So about the Hurricanes and Devils, Frederick Anderson stepped up, his usual self. Gone are the days of him choking as a Toronto Maple Leafs. I guess that blue sweater does have some magical dust that makes you choke because in that red sweater he's doing great. But you also got to
True.
look around too. Sebastian Aho did pretty good.
Yeah.
Brett Burns stepped up in situations. He's blocking shots. He does Brett Burns things. That's a huge addition that has definitely benefited the Carolina Hurricane. And
Yeah.
just depth. You look at Chatfield. He's doing his responsibilities. Jesperi Kotkaniemi. It's a great team, and it's crazy to think that they're missing Teuvo Teravainen and they're missing Svechnikov, and they're also man, they're also missing Pacioretty. So they're missing three very core pieces, and they just totally handed the Devils their lunch, man. Like just
Crazy.
completely destroyed them. They got a book on Akira Schmid. That's what happens after a playoff series, I guess, man. Uh,
Yeah.
they got enough film on them to know where to shoot, know how to make the plays. Akira Schmid's gonna be back. There's no way he's not. But tough loss for the Devils.
Yeah. All right. So now we are on to the conference finals. Ethan, there's only two series to discuss. You make your predictions for the next round. Who do you got between the Stars and Knights and the Hurricanes and the Panthers? What is your prediction for the Stanley Cup Finals?
All right, so let's focus on the Stars and Knights first, I guess. And I'm gonna pick the Stars, even though the Knights have the
Yep.
higher seed. It's funny that everyone bet against the Knights, even though they had one of the higher seeds. It's just funny how that works. But
Yes.
anyways, I'm betting on against them again, even though they got that solid string of goaltending. They have Adam Hill as their starter right now, the legend Jonathan Quick as their backup. I don't see goaltending being an issue, but I do see Rope Hintz being an issue for them.
Yeah.
And Joe Pavelski. Just the powerhouse of offense. The line combination for the Stars have really worked out, even down to their depth man. You got Max Domi, you got Max Domi, you got Mason Marchment, and forgive me, I honestly forgot who the third guy is on that offensive pairing, but with just those two guys, they have done their jobs. They're playing well. Obviously, we've already talked about Miro Heiskanen. I could keep going on, man. The Stars have a ton of players that.
We have Stars.
Oh yeah, Jason Robertson as well. Maybe he can get
Oh
some
no,
goals.
no. I need to. I mean, I guess I'll keep this jersey, but I need to get a 24. 24.
Oh yeah, yeah, Rope Hintz.
Yeah, I need to get a 24 because 24 is better than 21 right now.
Yeah,
Just being
get
honest.
a Stanley Cup Finals one with 24 on it. Get the patch and
Yes,
everything.
yes,
Yeah,
big yes. Cause
yeah,
like at the end of the day, uh, yeah, Robertson's been mid. He's been solid, but Hintz has been him. Himps, Himps, Himps is crazy.
yeah. And I'm not discounting Jack Eichel and the rest of the Knights, man. Like Jack Eichel, he had a breakout playoff series. It was like first round, you're like, okay, yeah, Jack Eichel's here.
The,
And then they handed the Winnipeg Jets the series.
the Boston University matchup between Jack Eichel and Jake Ottinger should be exciting
Yeah,
to see.
it should be. It would be fun if we get a penalty shot in there. Jack Eichel versus Andre,
That'd
man.
be crazy. Ottinger's win that battle.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Second in the
But
draft class, Jack Eichel. But,
so yeah, I'm also obviously I'm gonna pick the Stars. I mean, I picked the Stars the whole way, and there's no. I mean, they're like that. They're really good. The Knights are a really good team as well. They've got solid goaltending. Jack Eichel's a stud. Petrangelo is very good. The Knights are a good team, and obviously this is a familiar foe. We played them in the playoffs before as well. But at the end of the day, I feel like Vegas is going to come up short again. They've come up short a few times in the recent years, and they're going to do it again. The Stars have too many stars, and Rope Hintz is going to dominate. Joe Pavelski looked incredible last series. I don't expect that to change at all. We're probably going to get a couple big tipper goals from Joe this series. And Jake Ottinger is going to have a bounce back series and play a lot better, more consistent, and we're going to win and go to the Stanley Cup final. I'm very confident in my squad
oh yeah. And
for
so
sure.
now we go over to Carolina Hurricanes versus the Panthers. We got
Yes.
the one seed of the uh, Atlantic versus the wild card spot. So
Nice.
Definitely an interesting matchup, and honestly, I keep flipping back and forth. I could see both these teams winning.
Of
The
course.
other one I was thinking it was going to go six, but this one I definitely think it can go seven. And I'm going against my gut, man, but I got to go with Carolina, dude. I went against them last series, regretted it majorly. They've destroyed every team they've faced so far. Destroyed the Islanders, they destroyed the Devils, and now I'm going with Carolina. I picked Carolina the last 2 years to win the cup, and then of course the one year I don't pick them, they have a pretty
Exactly.
good chance of going. So it's tough for me, but I'm not going to bet against them this time. Like I said, I mentioned all the good players they have: Brett Burns, Sebastian Aho, Teuvo Teravainen, who's been injured this whole playoffs. He was seen in a contact uniform at practice, so it looks like he
He's
is
gonna come
coming
back.
back for this series. That's a huge piece for Carolina. Like I said, I'm not saying that Matthew Tkachuk and Verhaeghe and Montour and the rest of the bunch and Bobrovsky can't get it done, but I'm gonna give it to Carolina.
Yeah, before I do talk about that, just of all GG to Jade Sports, obviously a Kraken fan in the chat. GG, you guys put up a great series. So GG to y'all. And I also agree with you, Ethan. I got Carolina. I bet against them last round. They're a good team. They're very good this year. They're finally actually performing in the postseason and actually making it. So they're doing good. They have a great team. Aho, and even without some of their best players, Aho and Anderson and all those guys. They got a great squad, and Florida's going to give them a tough test. It's going to be a tough series, but I do think that the Hurricanes will come out on top. Game one is tomorrow, and that should be the start of a very exciting Eastern Conference final. So, yeah. I believe that the last time that we did this podcast, it was before the draft lottery. So,
Yeah.
and I want to get your opinions. What do you think most likely about Connor? I mean, 99.9% chance that Connor Bedard goes to the Chicago Blackhawks. How are your feelings about that one?
uh, I'm not feeling too great as like everyone except the Chicago Blackhawks are feeling about it. The
For
Chicago Blackhawks, they recently had that scandal, uh, the Kyle Beach scandal. It's obviously feel bad for families and everything involved in it, and I don't think the
Yeah,
Coyotes should have this draft pick. I just don't think they should. The Coyote, what I said the Coyotes? Did I say the Coyotes like 5 times there?
you
Is that
did
what
say the Coyotes.
Okay. Oops. Okay. The Blackhawks. The Coyotes are my later point. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about the Coyotes. The Coyotes lost their pick, I believe, uh, 2 years. I don't know. It was some number of years ago, very recently, for a prospect camp. The prospect camp. Oh no, they have an unfair advantage, but that's not harming anyone. The Chicago Blackhawks covered up a scandal for over a decade, and
That's
they're getting rewarded with probably the gem of the next 10 years in hockey, Connor Bedard. He's
that's
gonna
so
he's gonna
true.
accelerate their rebuild. Before this, Chicago had nothing, man, literally
They
nothing. They
didn't.
lost their two core pieces from their remaining Stanley Cup Finals runs. They were still in the middle of it, tearing it down. Now they're getting Connor Bedard. They're gonna be good in like 3 or 4 years, man. It's unfortunate, but
Obviously, for me, aside from the personal and off the ice things, I don't like it because now I have to see him in my division a bunch of times a year. It's not going to be fun, and it sucks. I still think the Stars are going to crush the Blackhawks though every time we play them because they are we own we're going to destroy them. I'm telling you, but it does suck, the having to deal as a Stars fan, having to deal with Patrick Kane cooking us all these years, Jonathan Toews cooking us all these years, and seeing the Blackhawks win Stanley Cups as of late, and now they get Connor Bedard. It's just annoying to see. Hate that Blackhawks are getting another elite player into the Central Division, and yeah, I mean it's the draft lottery. I mean it's just truly a luck of the draw. I mean, last night another generational prospect found out where he's going. Victor Wembanyama to the San Antonio Spurs, which is also another team in my favorite team's division. The Spurs are in the Mavericks division, so yay! After the draft lottery, I get to have in two sports two generational talents head into my favorite team's division. That's gonna be a lot
yeah,
of fun.
definitely, yeah. I mean,
But
I guess that's the one bright side. They're not in the Canucks division, but besides that, it's kind of like, come on, man. I would
yeah,
I
the
would hate him
Blackhawks.
being on the Ducks, but I don't know. I can deal with him instead of him being on the Blackhawks, bro. I really hate the
Yeah, the
Blackhawks.
Blackhawks just a very unlikable franchise.
Yeah, dude. Literally, when I was, I remember being like 5, bro, and like in British Columbia as a little Canucks fan, dude, and like I had like mini sticks of every team, man, and I would go through them and I would group them up and like teams I like and teams I don't, and like in the group of teams I don't like, it was the Canadians, the Blackhawks, and the Maple Leafs, bro. Everyone else I
Those
was like
three.
okay with, but the Blackhawks were in the group of the team that I hated, and I've just always hated them
But
since then,
no
man.
one outside of that city likes the Blackhawks.
I
They're
know.
like one of the most unlikable teams. They're like the Eagles, bro. No one likes that franchise at all.
Yeah.
They do not deserve. The Spurs are also unlikable, especially as a Mavericks fan. They've had success lately, and the Spurs have gotten extremely lucky. The Spurs have gotten extremely lucky as well in the draft lottery because they got Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and now they get Wemby. And it's just annoying to see the Blackhawks, man. They're coming off. They had their Stanley Cup moments. They won their cups earlier in the decade, and now they get Bedard. It's gonna be annoying to see. But I mean, the Stars are gonna have to. Unfortunately for the Blackhawks and for Bedard, he is unfortunately gonna be getting locked up by Miro Heiskanen for the next 15 years. So that's unfortunate for him. But
Hopefully.
and Jake Ottinger, Miro Heiskanen and Jake Ottinger are gonna lock up lock up Connor Bedard. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Obviously, I was refereeing at the time of the draft lottery, and I looked on my phone and I was like, okay, here come the picks. I mean, honestly, who else? I wouldn't have been mad if he went to like Columbus or
I
even
know, right?
Anaheim,
I
one of
know,
those
yeah.
teams. But
Yeah, Columbus was what was
Chicago,
my favorite, man. But
the one team that no one wanted him to go to, the one team that no one wanted him to go to. Just
yeah.
like it's kind of the same thing. I swear, bro, the sports are trolling us, bro. Like I swear, the one team that no one wanted, what's his name, to go to, Victor
Yeah.
Wembanyama was. No one wanted him to go to the Spurs. The Rockets, okay. The OKC Thunder, okay. The Charlotte Hornets desperately needed him. But no, they gave it to the Spurs, the team that's won the lottery and 3 times, gotten two generational talents already, and they're about to get another one.
Yeah.
It
It's
sucks,
tough.
man. It
It's
sucks.
tough. I mean, if you're the Ducks, you got a good consolation prize in Adam Fantilli, but he's not Connor Bedard, so
He is not Connor Bedard.
yeah.
It's like the same thing in the NBA draft, although the number 2 pick in the NBA draft gets is a little unclear because obviously I don't know if you've heard of the situation with do you know who Brandon Miller is?
No, I don't. I don't.
He's an Alabama basketball star this year who he was involved in a pretty serious crime, although he didn't like commit it. He like gave the weapon to the teammate of his who ended up committing the
Okay.
crime. So he was obviously in that controversy, but he's a good player. But there was some big controversy around him in the Alabama basketball program. And the other guy is like a John Morant type of player, although it's hopefully not with the off the court problems,
Yeah.
because John Morant's been a little hood kid off the court, little hood kid off the court trying to make it out of the NBA.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for all the Grizzlies fans. Like imagine being a poverty franchise and like struggling for years, and then you finally get a really elite player like Ja, and
Mhm.
he's more focused on the off the court type of things and the hood stuff instead of actually trying to like you know perform.
Yeah. It's
I would
unfortunate.
hate if that happened. So
Yeah.
it's a L.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, you want to keep going on this draft thing, or I got another thing about the NHL and NBA connection that's kind of fun.
what do you got, Ethan? What do you
All
got?
right, so something that's kind of cool to see is that the Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers are in the conference finals, both from South Florida, and they both are the bottom seeds. So just the odds of
Yup.
that happening, man. Two bottom seeds from the same city going to their conference finals, potentially going to their finals. Uh, uh, what a party that would be in South Florida, you know?
That's a W for sure. I mean, it'd be nice if the Dallas sports could do the same thing. That'd be
Yeah.
pretty cool. Although we've kind of gotten that back to back years, we've had a team make the conference finals. We had the Mavericks last year, now we have the Stars.
Mhm.
Wish the Cowboys could hold up their end of the deal on that, but um,
uh,
you
hey man,
know,
the Arlington Renegades, bro,
the
won the
Arlington
XFL,
Renegades.
bro,
I'll tell you what. I
won the
tell you
XFL,
what.
man.
But that's actually. I mean, it's pretty cool. Obviously, the Heat. You probably more about the NHL side. I mean, from the NBA perspective, Jimmy Butler is Timothy in the postseason, And for the NBA, it's the exact Final Four from the bubble, which is pretty cool. And here in the NHL, the Stars and the Knights are the same conference finals from the bubble. So
Yeah,
there's a little
that's
the
another
bubble
thing.
kind of fluke. A few years later, both
Yeah,
bubbles are having some similarities.
exactly. Yeah, three of the four series are repeats, man. Don't take anything away from the bubble series. They were legit, 100% legit, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
I remember like seeing when the Stars made the Stanley Cup that year. I remember seeing some people say, "Oh, if they win, it doesn't count. The bubbles full like fake."
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, the bubble. That was a crazy playoff run. I don't even remember all of it. I just remember the one I didn't like. I wasn't as like I was a hockey fan, but I didn't pay attention to the team as much at that time. But I do remember the Kiviranta hat trick in Game 7 against Colorado.
Mhm.
And I also remember, of course, I watched the conference finals that year, the Guryanov goal, Guryanov. That was unfortunate. I mean, it was still a pretty good moment, but unfortunately, I think Guryanov never like took the next step after that. Neither did Kiviranta.
Yeah,
But
but I mean, you got Dadonov for Gurianov, and Dadonov's done well in the playoffs.
yeah,
So
that Donov, and then
yeah.
and that team. It's crazy to think about how different. Like that was what 3 seasons ago.
Mhm.
How different the Stars are now. Because back then, your top line was Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, and Alexander Radulov. Radulov's pretty sure he's not even in the NHL
Dude, I
anymore.
literally forgot Radulov existed, bro. That's
I
crazy.
know, so did
That's
I.
crazy. Wow.
Radulov was
Man,
our
I remember him, man. That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah, and Anton Guryanov scored the game-winning goal in that series in the Western Conference Finals, and he's not on the team anymore. Never really did anything. Kiviranta is a fourth line player after having an incredible postseason, and Anton Hudobin was our elite goalie that postseason.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
veteran.
He was in the depths of the Blackhawks organization, man.
Yeah, now it's
Gave
Big
up
West.
an own goal for the Blackhawks. Helped them tank for Bedard, you know.
What a smart man.
I know,
But
right?
for those few months, that man was a dominant force for the Dallas Stars. He was incredible that series
Yeah.
and that postseason. And yeah, a lot of things. It's crazy to think about how much the team has changed since then. Now we are completely in. Ropa Hintz was still on the team at the time, but now we are completely. We had John Klingberg as our first line defensive pairing as well. Like the Stars are so much different, but it is good to see. I remember last year a lot of people were talking about Jim Nill and people being upset at Jim Nill. But I give Jim Nill, our GM, a lot of credit for piecing together and bridging together the both eras as the Ben Sagan era came to starting to come to a close. He bridged it perfectly with the Heiskanen, Ottinger, um, Hint, Robertson era. It's kind of come together really nicely to give the Stars a really bright future, which is a W
Yeah,
because
all credit to Jim Neal, man. Like, you could be the Blackhawks right now tanking for Bedard, but no, you had maybe a little down year in between, but
yeah, we had a
you're
couple
still
down
going
years.
for it, man. But
Yeah,
still a
we had
contending team, and they're gonna be a contending team for a long time.
great to see, great to see. Very proud. Obviously, the Stars have been one of the better. I mean, they're the best run organization of all the teams in Dallas, which is awesome to see. Because some franchises do not know how to run teams in this city, but the Stars they know how to do it. So I'm proud of
Yeah.
them for that. And is there anything else you want to discuss, Ethan? Anything else on the
Uh,
topic?
I mean, we talked about Houston, but what do you think about a battle of Texas in the NHL, man?
Well, we already had Battle of Texas and other sports, although some of them, it really just depends. I mean, if they're in our division, that'd be pretty cool.
I
Like
mean,
the
the
Texans and
Coyotes already
Cowboys,
are, so yeah, they probably
yeah,
would be.
the Cowboys and Texans is, I don't care. The Texans are poverty anyway. Don't care about them. And in basketball, I mean, there was actually a pretty serious rivalry between the Mavs and the Spurs there for a little while. So that explains why I'm not happy about them getting Victor. And then what's the others? MLB. Oh, obviously we have the big rivalry with that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean they're rivalries, and honestly, if they turn out like the other expanded teams and they turn into a good team, we could get some really cool battles. I would not be opposed to the Battle of Texas, although obviously compared to football, basketball, and baseball, hockey's obviously not as popular in Texas, but I think that would be one thing to really get the Texas fan base on, get some popularity in the Texas hockey world is having that rivalry between the two teams. I think that would be really cool to have. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think it'd be great for the sport, and I think it'd be fun to have an in-state rival. 'Cause it's always nice
Yeah.
to be able to make fun of being better than the team in your state. Like I always love making fun of my cousins who are Texas fans because their team sucks.
Mhm.
I love it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, as
But
long as keep
they
going,
got
man,
the
keep going.
Astros on me. So,
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Yeah. I mean, as
but
long as the Coyotes rebuild is about wrapped up by the time they move to Houston, because we know they're staying here for a little longer, I think they could be pretty competitive. You know, they got a lot of draft picks, a lot of young guys, so could be a
yeah,
fun rivalry, man.
I guess I'm glad that the Coyotes didn't win the rivalry because if they did, or the lottery, because if they
Yeah.
did, they would have Bedard, and that would not be good if they had Bedard because then when they moved to Houston, they would have Bedard, and then that'd be really bad.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that would be bad. Yeah.
that would be bad. But I if you unless you don't have anything to say, is there anything else, Ethan, for the podcast today? Any other topics?
I mean, real quick, we can talk about the Ottawa Senators. Ryan Reynolds is out, so no more Ryan Reynolds. Yeah.
So who's it
I'll,
down to?
it's down to the Snoop Dogg group. There's the Weekends group, and then there's also First Nations group from Canada that is also going for it. So we're gonna
First,
find we're gonna find First Nations is like Native American, what they call them First Nations in Canada. And
okay.
yeah, yeah, gotcha. And then
There's also a bunch of bidders and a bunch of high profile bidders. That's interesting that right now we currently, although the Commanders one is starting to become more like it's getting closer, but
mhm,
it's crazy that right now we have two sports franchises on the verge of being bought by new ownership, as we have the Senators and the Commanders. And we also have two sports franchises who are in very similar situations of limbo in their current cities,
yeah,
as the Athletics going to Las Vegas is going to be probably pretty soon,
yeah,
and that's pretty sad. So right now we have, yeah, that's pretty sad. I mean there's similarities between the Coyotes and A's, as both teams
oh
are both
definitely,
poverty.
definitely,
The A's
yeah,
do have, but the A's have history though. The A's actually
mhm.
have some success in their history, and the Coyotes have not even made a Stanley
I
Cup.
mean,
Hell,
even very recent history. There's videos from like 3 years ago of them filling the Coliseum. So it's just unfortunate how
exactly.
quickly it's fallen down. But yeah, I mean it's funny. There's literally some A's games where there would be more people at a Coyotes game than A's games.
I
But
know there's
like,
like 2,000
yeah,
people. It's like
yeah,
how,
it's crazy,
guys.
man.
I
It's
mean,
crazy.
to be fair, the way that the A's manage their team, they sell off literally every
Yeah.
single good player. Like they have a guy right now named Brett Rooker who's like really good. I guarantee you he will be gone by the trade deadline for
Mhm.
prospects. Like what's the point of getting these prospects and then as soon as they get a little expensive, you're gonna trade them away? Like there's no point.
Yeah. I would say the one slight difference going back to this Ottawa Senators situation is if the Coyotes move, they're probably getting sold, and especially with the known bid of $1 billion by one of the three bidders for the Ottawa Senators. Uh, there's definitely a high market value for an NHL team right now, so I don't see why the Coyotes owner wouldn't sell them if he were to move them somewhere. So that's another potential team that could get sold soon, which is very different to the Athletics, which are keeping their owner, and his intentions are to keep him in Vegas. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right, Ethan. It was another fun podcast today, but I think that just about wraps it up.
Mhm.
We covered a lot of things in this episode of the Lamplighting Podcast. We talked about the Commerce Finals. We talked about the Coyotes. We talked about the Bedard Draft Lottery and the Senators. We talked about a lot on this podcast. So hope everyone who watched the podcast enjoyed and learned a little bit about hockey in the process, and also is if you guys are hockey fans out there, excited for the next round. We are getting closer and closer to the end of the season as the school year comes down and we're almost done with that. Hockey, we're about to get to the Stanley Cup as well. It's very exciting. Summer's almost here and hockey is almost done, which will be sad, but at the same time, it is time to crown a champion and hopefully it will be the Green Dallas Stars. So that's the hope here, and hopefully the next stream on the channel will be a conference finals stream. Although I'm not sure if it'll be game one because I will be in San Antonio. We'll be watching, but I'm not sure there will be a stream because I'll be in hotel Wi-Fi, and that Wi-Fi sucks, and I'll
Yeah.
stream the fire. Sorry, but you know there will be conference final streams and hopefully some more stars victories. So yeah, Ethan, if there's anything else you want to say before the stream